Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. This video is going to be a little different today, not my usual content. Because it is wedding planning for me right now, as you guys are well aware, I wanted to share with you guys some tips to like start off your planning. I'm not going to go into full detail, kinda, not really, but like things that kind of helped me. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So before we get started, of course, make sure you are subscribed to my channel. Ring that bell so you are notified when I do upload a new video, and don't forget to give this a thumbs up, and don't forget to follow me on my Instagram handle right there, and let's get started with the video. Okay, so I want to tell you guys about my process. So what I did first is that I looked for inspiration. So for some people, it could be flipped around, like the budget comes first before diving into inspiration and what you're wedding to look like. But for me, I wanted to get some inspiration first. Now, if you are gonna do what I'm doing, like with the whole inspiration first before budget, do keep a realistic mindset that like most of these pictures that you will go through Google, Instagram, Pinterest, and whatnot, right? Chances are that they have a unlimited budget, or they dedicate a good chunk of their budget towards like decor, like all these flowers, the tables, these like was it the flower chandeliers or whatever, like they look gorgeous. But I'm pretty sure it's either one, their budget is unlimited, or they dedicate a good chunk of their budget towards that. Or three, their designer, wedding planner, or whatever the case may be, gave them a really good deal on it. I don't know how good, but like it could be a good deal. But anyways, with that being said, if you are gonna dive into inspiration first, be sure that you have a realistic mindset for it. So when I was looking into inspiration, I was looking at colors, decor, see like what will go well with us like as a couple, and also with venue as well, because we want a venue that is something that kind of like means to us in terms of like some elements, and in my opinion, like that is important to every couple, like something that represents you guys, right? So we wanted a venue that kind of represents us too, and even with the theme of the wedding. So again, with the whole inspiration thing, I got a little bit of ideas from here and there, here, and I kind of like put it all together on my iPad just to kind of like, okay, does this work with this work with that? More of a visual, just to see how everything will tie in together rather than just everything in my head, right? Because it may look nice in my head, but when on paper and in person, it may look different. So what me and Ryan did, we went to see some venues first before the budget. So why we did this first is just to have a idea of like, okay, maybe does this work with us? Does this work with us? And also at the same time is that we can inquire in terms of pricing and all that stuff too, just to have a general idea of the area, right? So we looked into like Newmarket, and we looked into Toronto, and we looked like parts of the city. And depending where you're gonna get married, especially in Toronto, like the prices will differ. But also do keep in mind that if it's one thing, be sure that they have like amenities for you guys, like there's a bridal suite, do they have a functioning kitchen and all that stuff too, right? So when you are getting a quote on this, be sure to keep in mind that there are probably other things that will be added onto that quote. Basically, we decide to check out venues first just to have a general idea of pricing, right? So we can kind of incorporate that into the budget. Other people may find this counterproductive, or they want to do a budget first before that. Again, it depends on the couple. This is how we did it. And you know, it gave us a good idea of like how much venues cost in the area. Because let's say if we like laid out a budget before viewing anything, right? And let's say our budget was like 10 grand for a venue, right? And we want in Toronto. Chances are that it may be close to impossible because it's in downtown Toronto, right? It may be more possible if we go away from the city, but in downtown Toronto, probably not. And so we would have to stretch the budget or take things from like other parts of our budget to like make up for the venue. So it was a good idea for us just to like check out the venues, check out the vibe, the atmosphere, and at the same time inquire about dates and gain a quote on the venue itself, and if they offer catering and all that stuff too, right? So that was how we did it. Now on to the next part, which is the actual budget itself. So like I said, some people want to do the inspiration of it first and then budget, or vice versa. And as I said, like we went to check out venues first just to have a idea of the pricing and everything, so we can, you know, incorporate that into the budget and determine what we need to spend on accordingly. Another thing as well is that if you love a certain venue, you can ask them for the dates, what they have available, and ask for a soft hold. You don't have to put a deposit on it. It's just a soft hold. It'll be held for like X amount of days or a week or whatever their policy is. I can't absolutely say, but you can request a hold on it, and once you discuss the logistics, the finances with your fiance, you can go ahead and put the deposit, or if you want a second look, whatever the case may be. So just to keep in mind of that, because I didn't know that you could put a soft hold in a venue until like 3 venues in. So do keep in mind of that. Anyways, but back to budgeting though. So we picked the venue, this is the X amount of dollars, plug that into this budget. How much do we have left to spend in like entertainment, the dress, blah blah blah, right? And you know, if there's certain areas that we have to like increase the budget on, because the prices have been increasing over the years, so we had to be prepared for that as well. Costs have gone up over the years, obviously, and also if you didn't catch the venue, the entertainment or whatever in time, their prices may have increased already. So for example, my MC, I caught him before he increased his price, which is great. So I saved myself $100 right there. To some people, $100 may be nothing, but when you add it from other vendors and they increase their price, it will add up, and your budget you will go over budget. Inquire as early as you can. At least if you inquire, they may honor, be like, hey, you know what, this is the price I gave you originally, even though I'm increasing my price, but you know what, because we discussed it before, like my price increase, I will honor it, right? Some of them will, some of them don't, but don't have the expectation that they all will. So lucky for me that I was able to do that. So inquire early, make sure you guys are comfortable with the budget. Like even though I did say like you probably will go over budget because of certain things, but be sure that like if you were to go over budget, that you guys are comfortable with that. Maybe have like, this is your budget, and then have a emergency side of it as well. So let's say your budget $65,000, you could use the $60,000 as like your actual budget, and that remaining $5,000 would be like, hey, this is our emergency fund or something like that. Let's say like you have your guests who brought their +1s, or like something happened, like at least you have that kind of like emergency fund in there already. If you don't need to use it, that's great, but like I think that like as a security blanket, I would suggest that. So I definitely would say have a budget that you guys are comfortable with, because the last thing you need is to have a fight over like, hey, like I'm spending this much on this and this much on that, and everything's like goes out of place, right? So obviously have a budget, and make sure you have a budget to whatever is in each section. So let's say you dedicate like $5,000 for like photography and video, $3,000 for your dress. Be sure to keep in line with all of those. If you do have to go over, obviously speak to your fiance about it if you absolutely need to go over for whatever reason, just so they are in the loop and see what's going on, if you guys can accommodate that. If you need to take money out of the like other categories just to make up for that, then do that. Like just play with the numbers and see what you can or cannot do. Next part, guest list. We all love the guest list. So of course with the venue, we did have a number in mind in terms of guest list. So we had a range of like 120 to 130 or something like that. So that is like our general number. Of course that's excluding +1s, because majority of our guest list is like dating someone, married, kids, family, and all that stuff, right? So again, keep in mind with the guest count. So of course, the higher the number, the more money you will pay for food. It's not something that anyone wants to hear about, spending more money, but it does come hand in hand. If you have more people, you have to up the chairs, you have to up the food, you may have to add an extra table in there if it's more than 10 people. You know, like there's a lot of things that you have to account for. So do keep in mind that if you're gonna be raising your guest list numbers, everything else will like go up as well. It's like a domino effect. So again, that emergency fund that may come in handy because you know your guest count went up, so that may contribute to your caterer, your venue, if it's a all-in-one service. That's what I would suggest with the whole budget thing and the guest count. But if you're very strict on the numbers, be like, hey, our number's 120, I'm sorry, you can't have a +1, then just be transparent to your guests. So alongside with the guest count, I also recommend you having a potential flop list. Now, majority of the flop could be from family from out of town to see like if this person doesn't come, then this is our number and so forth, right? That's just a recommendation, because the last thing you need is you tell the caterer that you have 130 guests, right? And then all of a sudden like 8 of them don't show up, and then they RSVP'd and all that stuff, right? And it's just like, well, we have 130 plates to pay now. So that's why I recommend having a flop list just in case. If they RSVP, great, then never mind. But if they don't RSVP or anything, then it's just like, you know what, flop. So as we're talking about like venues, guest lists, and all that good stuff. So obviously when you said the higher the number, the numbers of like everything else will go up, right? So the caterer is one thing as well. So if you have a venue that has that all-in-one service and doesn't accept like outside caterer, forget I said anything, because you're bound to one choice, so this doesn't apply to you. But if you do have a venue that allows outside catering, and I'm pretty sure that they would have their preferred, do get quotes on like as many caterers as possible, because the prices can fluctuate from one caterer to another in terms of food, plating, staff, buffet, and all that stuff, right? Every caterer is different. And I would also really recommend to try out the food. So the caterer that we chose and went to is actually our first choice, and was actually recommended by the venue because they were they're like their new preferred caterer. So she recommended her to us, and then we talked on the phone, we did the quotes, the pricing, and then they did a complimentary tasting, which is very rare because most of the time you would have to pay for it, right? So we did the complimentary tasting, and the food was so good. Like, oh my god. Mind you, I didn't know that complimentary was like a rare thing. I thought it just comes with it. The other places that we quoted for, they asked us to, you know, pay an X amount to try out the food, right? But in my mind, I felt like I'm paying so much for the wedding already, and now if I have to pay like $500 just to try your food and I don't like it, then I lose out on $500, right? So it was a very difficult decision. Like, as much as I would want to like compare, I don't want to splurge on $500 just to see if you are better than this other caterer, right? If it was a reasonable price, okay, maybe sure, but the fact that it's $500, I was like, maybe not. So again, like, do your research, get many quotes as you can, especially the type of meal that you're doing. Like Western style versus Asian style, prices can be different. Like a 3-course meal versus a 10-course meal, like prices will differ. So depending on what type of food you want to serve, that will reflect on the prices as well. And then again, do as much comparison as you can, because the last thing you need is to overpay on something when another caterer tastes way better and is a lot cheaper, right? Definitely do that, because one of the things people will remember is the food. And I'm pretty sure anyone out there who's been to weddings will remember the food. They will remember. And my last tip is to create a timeline at least 1 year before the wedding. Like, I created a timeline that's 12 plus months. And you know what, you guys, I booked everything in like 2.5 months. Like the caterer, I got my dress, I got my MC, I got my DJ. I don't have a florist, but I do have like decor going on. I booked off like certain things for my decor, the linens, the tables, all that stuff. Like, I booked all of that. And now, because since I booked all that, I don't really have much to worry about until, like, you know, when it gets closer to it. But I do recommend you making a timeline for yourself. So from like 12 months, 11 months, like 7 to 8 months, what to do, right? There's a lot of timelines you can find over Google. I found one of them on it as well, and like I adjusted it accordingly. So I first copied it to how it was, and then as time went on, I'm like, okay, so this thing's important to me, this is not important to me. I can move this up here and so forth, right? Just so I can have ample time and not worry. Like, I love to plan, I love to organize things, and I want to be sure there is enough time as well. Especially like for my dress, for example, I got my dress in like April, so I have more than a year, because like there's like what, 9 months for the dress to come in, and then there's a few months for it to take for the alterations as well, right? So by the time it comes in and the alterations are done, I should have maybe like a month month and a half before the wedding, and it should, like, you know, it should be fine. But for me, I would prefer to have like extra time just in case like things did happen. If not, great. If it did, okay, well, at least I have a bit more time there. I'm still gonna be anxious, but at least I have some time. So creating a timeline really definitely helps just to organize everything, especially if you don't have like a wedding planner assisting from start to finish. I will have a wedding coordinator on the day of, because I'll be too busy like getting ready and then taking photos to even like look after at like the little things like the centerpieces, making sure everyone's arrived right. So I do need help that day. And that's another thing I suggest as well, is that if you do not have a wedding planner and you do all this by yourself, at least have a day of coordinator just to alleviate some of the stress off of you, because again, you'll be busy getting ready with hair and makeup, eating, taking photos. Like, you're not gonna physically be there to really look after everything. If you can, great. If not, then I would definitely recommend one, just so you can be worry-free. And if anything was to happen that day, the wedding coordinator would like tackle all that, troubleshoot all that. If the cake didn't arrive, or if there's something wrong with the cake, or if the photographer or videographer were late for whatever reason, the wedding coordinator would be able to take care of those while you are busy doing your own thing. You know, just again, take the stress off of you, right? So that is one thing that I would really, really highly recommend if you do not have a wedding planner. So anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope these like little like tips to help you guys out and to get started on your wedding planning. And if you guys have any questions, you can leave it down in the comment section below and I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. Mind you, I am not a wedding planner at all. These are just things that worked out for me, right? But again, if you guys have any questions, I can answer it to the best of my abilities. But anyways, you guys, I gotta head out right now, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.